Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening depending on where you are in this amazing world. My name is Donovan Jolly, and welcome everybody once again for another amazing video of DIY investing. For today's video, I wanted to take another look at the big picture trend of Bitcoin and analyze all of the prior market cycles that we've had and give you guys an exact replica of how we can actually go about structuring and taking profits at the end of this cycle. Many people are wondering, especially now that we've had this sell-off, it was a big wake-up call to investors that they really need to learn how to take profits the right way. Many of you guys probably reinvested profits at the top, only to lose all of them at this recent correction. So for today's video, I'm going to be diving into the long-term trend. We're going to be taking a look at all of the prior cycles, analyzing how this cycle stacks up and how we can go about making the most profit and knowing how to structure out of our long-term bags at the end of the year. If you're new and just find this channel, always remember to do me a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to this channel for more updates. Always make sure to click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these awesome videos like the one provided for you here. And make sure you guys sign up and join the Discord server and congregate with the rest of my amazing community. Links are provided for you in the description to go ahead and join there. On top of that, if you're new, just getting into these markets, maybe you made a lot of mistakes in the sell-off, I have a free ebook that you guys can also download that I know is going to help you guys out tremendously because I put some of my most important knowledge inside of that ebook to give you guys the extra advantage inside the market. So check it out. Links are provided for you in the description. And with all that being said, guys, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so I wanted to take a time to just analyze the entirety of the Bitcoin cycle. We're going to go through, I'm going to summarize some thoughts and perspective for you guys, and I'm going to make it really simple and easy to understand. Now, every cycle goes through, maybe 3 or 4 different parts, and it's pretty obvious for me anyways to tell where we're at inside of this cycle, what part we're actually at. So I wanted to go through and give you guys a little bit of my thoughts, some of my analysis, because at the end of the day, me, along with every other analyst on crypto, on YouTube, on Twitter, wherever it might be, we all come to, varying conclusions. Some of them might be very similar, some of them might be different. But at the end of the day, I've seen 2 different scenarios and 2 outlooks that have seemed to be the most attractive for most people. And that is the 4-year cycle theory and the idea of the cycles lengthening. Now, in my opinion, there's equally as much evidence to support both conclusions. It's really just which one do you prefer. And in my opinion, I have always stuck with the 4-year cycle because I've always believed that that was actually the form of analysis that Bitcoin was following. I didn't think that the cycles were lengthening, and I'll explain to you guys why I don't think they're lengthening. Although anybody that does believe they are, I think that they have just as much data to back that assumption as I do, and as anybody else that believes 4-year cycle theory. So I wanted to go through here, guys. Now, first things first, one of the biggest reasons why I don't usually talk about this first cycle very much, and really the biggest weight that people that say the lengthening cycles are happening hold so much analysis to is really just how short this first cycle was. Because if you analyze from the beginning to the end, or if you just do from the low to the low, this one is much shorter than this one, and this one's even shorter than this one was. And so it shows this path that maybe the cycles are lengthening. But I personally don't think that that's the case, and I'm going to explain to you guys why that is so. Now, first things first, guys. When we go back and take a look at Bitcoin, we only have price history from the point of, July of 2010. Bitcoin had been around a whole 2 years prior to that. It was released in 2008. So there's an entirety of the price chart we simply do not have because nobody was keeping track of it back then, right? And so all we have is this random point where Bitcoin is added to exchanges, right? Now, we have this massive rally. You guys got to understand that at the time of Bitcoin being back in 2010 when it was worth, pennies, there was very, very, very few amount of people investing into it. The market cap was about that of a low cap market cap coin, something that, you would consider some shit coin at today's standards. And that's really why we saw Bitcoin go up so much, is because there was some demand. Black market websites started using it. Smart nerds and stuff that were just keen on technology in general started using it. So it didn't take much money to get this big parabolic rise. And so due to the fact that there was just such a low amount of liquidity, it couldn't even follow a 4-year cycle because obviously, a crypto that has pretty much no money in it is not going to continue to follow a 4-year cycle because they have to have a lot of liquidity inside of that cycle to actually do and follow along to those rules. And so these are kind of my reasons on why I don't think the cycles are lengthening. Now let's further this analysis by talking to you guys and sharing the similarities between the last few cycles and really just proving to you guys why I don't think they're lengthening and why they're actually following much closer to the last cycle. So to do this, we're going to come over here and we're going to just take the chart from about the cycle top, and we're just going to take the time to analyze really the 3 or 4 step equation that I see happening every single cycle. So once you get the bear market top, we sell off. We have this 80-90% decline in price. And then that's where we find our bottom. Now, where we find our bottom, sometimes we consolidate for a little while. Sometimes we just get our first impulse off the lows. In this case, we got an impulse off the lows. But what's interesting to me, guys, is notice the time frames in which this is happening at. Notice how this bottomed and got our first impulse here at about November, around that winter time, right? Late fall, early winter. That's really where we got that reversal point into the bull market. And that's really where we got our next major alt run. And that's really where we get our first major market cycle after that bear market, right? So first bear market, we roll around the winter time, and then that's where we start the impulse. Now, guys, after this first little breakout off the lows, this is what takes us into our next part. And this is really where Bitcoin goes and it breaks past the all-time highs, right? This was the all-time highs. This is the break past the all-time highs. And notice at what time this happened. So we're going to draw a line down here at the bottom of this cycle. And we're going to make this one red. And we're going to make this one, and we're going to leave this green. And so we're going to leave a line here at the bottom of our cycle. So this is going to be about November 2011, around the 14th of November. We're going to call that our cycle low. Now, this takes us to step 2, and this is the break past the all-time highs. And this is really where we get our first pullback, first major pullback in price discovery, right? And this generally happens around the same thresholds here. So we're going to make this one black. And notice how this one happens around April of 2013. Now, this is the way that these cycles work. Generally, around that tax season, you're going to actually get a sell-off. This is from people taking profits, people that have been holding long-term, ready to realize some of that gain, and they want to do that before the tax season to pay off some of their taxes. And this is generally where you're going to see that midway cool-off. And this happens around April the 8th of 2013, right? And then this is what takes us for our final peak of the cycle. This is our step 3. This is the very top. We're going to come here and label this one red. Now, notice how this one's coming, pretty close to that same threshold again. We bottomed here at about November of 2011, around that winter time frame. We're also topping around that winter time frame. And so this is a pattern that I want you guys to really pay attention for. What you're going to notice inside of Bitcoin cycles is they top around the winter time and they bottom around the winter time. And this is going to be a pattern I'm going to share with you guys across the cycle, and you're going to understand. And so these are the 3 time frames that we have, and we're actually take these same time frames, apply the same inputs to these current cycles, and I'm going to share with you guys how similar these actually are. So these are our first 3 time frames. We get November, we get April, and then we get November again. Now let's apply the same rule once more. So we topped here, and then we get our cycle low once again. So our cycle low comes right there. Make this one green. And that came around January 12th, 2015. That's where we get our cycle low put in. So the next phase happens after the first breakout of the all-time high and that first pullback after that breakout. So in this case, this one happened around April of 2013. Now, if you guys are going to notice, here's where we were below the all-time highs. Here's about $1,000 per Bitcoin. Notice this big leg up that we had. This was when altcoins really went nuts in that last cycle for the first time. We had this big run up. Bitcoin goes all the way up to, $3,200 approximately. And then we have our first pullback. And so that first top actually takes place around June 5th. So we're going to take this one red. So that takes place around June 5th, right? So we get our low here at around January of 2015. We get our midway cool off here at around June of 2017. And now once again, guys, just like the last cycle, we get one more big leg up, and that's what takes us to our cycle top. So we're going to make this one, red. I forgot to change this. This one should actually be black. And so this is where we get our next 3 set of inputs here. So our first one here is November 14th, 2011. This was our first cycle low. Our second one comes in here around April the 8th of 2013. And then we get our final peak, step 3 of the equation, and that's November 25th, 2013. So we input the exact same rules here. We get our cycle low at January 12th, 2015. We get our midway cool off here at about June of 2017. And then we get our peak here at about December 17. So if you guys notice here, there is actually a lot of similarities. Once again, we bottomed around the winter time. Once again, we had our midway cool off around that summer threshold, around the tax season. And then once again, we topped at that winter threshold once again. And so these are following pretty much those same paths. And what's really interesting, guys, is you can actually take this date tool and you can actually analyze even further. So in this situation, this one's going to be a little bit different. From the low of this move to the low is only going to be about 1,155 days. So we're quite a few months away from being at a 4-year threshold. This is about 3 years and 2 months. But like I said, I think that this first cycle is kind of an outlier, mainly because there really wasn't very much money inside of that. But what you guys are going to notice here is when we take these same inputs and we apply them, if we analyze from the midway cool off all the way to the next midway cool off, you're going to see that this one equals almost 4 years. It's slightly over 4 years. And if we analyze from the cycle top to the cycle top again, that one's also going to equal about 4 years. And so it syncs up here at about this midway sell-off. This is finally when there's enough liquidity inside of Bitcoin, finally enough volume that we start to follow this 4-year cycle. And we can see that here. 4 years, for you guys that don't know, is 1,461 days. So this was almost exactly 4 years between this peak, and this was almost a little over 4 years, about a month over 4 years, 2 months from midway cool off to midway cool off. So we're already starting to follow that 4-year cycle theory. Now, this is really where we come into the next cycle. So once again, we're going to analyze our low here. We're going to make this one green right there. That's the bottom of the cycle. Notice how once again it happens at December. That's also in the winter. So we got a November, we got a January, and we've had a December low, all within a couple months of the same period of time, winter. Now, this is what takes us to step 2, the midway cool off. So in this case, we had our first one happen in April. We had our second one happen in June. We're going to analyze the top of this wick here. We're going to make this one black. And this one's happening at around April the 12th. And so we're actually following a little bit more closely to our first major, or I should say our second big bull run here. We topped at April the 8th of 2013. We're topping April the 12th of 2021. So we're actually following once again to that same threshold. Now, this, guys, takes us to our final input, which obviously we have no idea where that is going to be. And so to identify this, let's just go 4 years in advance from our cycle top, right? Because this is the way that it's supposed to go. Now, let's go over here. Let's see if low to low equals 4 years. Almost exactly 4 years. We're about 30 days off from being exactly 4 years. So from low to low, we're following a 4-year cycle. Now let's apply it to the midway cool off. So this point to this point should equal about 1,461 days. And once again, it does. It's a little bit under, about a couple months under, but regardless, we're still following pretty close to those same 4-year time frames. And then once again, guys, to identify where potentially our cycle top is going to be, let's just go 4 years from the cycle high, which is going to be 1,461 days. So approximately right here. And if we draw another input, make this one red, this is going to be our projected cycle top about December of 2021. And so, guys, this is kind of the analysis that I've had and I wanted to share with you. We've been following along almost the exact same time frame since the beginning of Bitcoin's history. The only reason the first cycle didn't do it is because it got added to exchanges randomly in the middle of the summer, and there wasn't hardly any liquidity inside of that. And one of the big things on why I don't think the cycles are lengthening is because when we ignore this cycle and we compare this cycle to this cycle to this cycle that we're in right now, we're going to notice that all 3 of these cycles seem to be following the exact same time frames. And so if the cycles actually were lengthening, why would they keep following those same time frames? That's just my thoughts and perspectives with it. I don't actually think the cycles are lengthening, because you can apply the same data points and find out that, there's equally as much evidence supporting the cycles are staying at roughly the same time frames than there is that the cycles are actually lengthening. I mean, we're seeing that across the board. And if we come over here, guys, it really starts to sync up at about 2013 of April. That's when we start to get that perfect 4-year cycle synchronicity, where from this black line to this black line is once again almost equal to 4 years. From this red line to this red line is almost exactly 4 years. And from this green line to this green line is almost exactly 4 years. And even when we take the same patterns again, we go from black to black, once again, roughly the same time frames as before. So if we follow it from black to black, thus far we're still on path to those same sort of time frames. You're gonna get a couple months difference between each and every one of these. What we have noticed is that Bitcoin topped in 2013 around the end of November. We know that it topped around the beginning of December in the last cycle. And so we don't know exactly where the exact time frames are gonna be. Is it gonna be December? Is it gonna be late November? Could it be January? These are all things that we have no idea of knowing until the actual time comes. This is really why, for me, I'm just going to be taking the last few months of the year, structuring my sell orders, laddering out of my positions, because I'm not going to try and predict the exact top. I'm not going to try and wait until some specific date in the time and just sell everything at that exact time frame. I'm just going to ladder out in this next big move because, guys, at the end of the day, we've had our low, we've had our midway, and now really only thing we have left is our final peak. Low, midway, final peak. Low, midway, we'll get one more big peak to close out this year. And that same peak is going to follow pretty close to the same time frames that we've already followed up to this point. I mean, if we follow a year from or if we follow 4 years from what we topped at, in 2017, that's going to be putting us around December of 2021, which historically has been a pretty consistent point of topping for Bitcoin. This one happened at the end of November. This one happened at the beginning of December. Is this one going to happen around the same time? Most likely, which is why I'm just going to do my part in selling. Guys, when you take a look and you just analyze the big picture, you can find so many key data points that just simply show that the cycles are staying pretty much the same length in time. And really, when you try and fit in the idea that the cycles are lengthening, it's all structured around this first big move being so short. And while there's equally as much data points, I still am going to be firm in believing that we're going to be topping around that same threshold as following the 4-year cycle theory. So anyways, guys, this is the video I had for you. Just wanted to summarize some thoughts and perspectives. If you guys want to actually check out my Discord, join for free. Links are provided for you in the description. On top of that, if you're new getting into these markets, you want to make sure that you're setting yourselves up for success and not failure. I have a free ebook that's also going to help you guys out tremendously. You guys can download that in the description of this video. On top of that, if you guys actually want to sign up for my video course or signals, follow the trades that I take, get all of that analysis that I do, all the updates in the market, links are also in the description for that as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you found value, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And with all that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.